You know how when you get sick, you might get a fever or a runny nose? Well, computers can get sick too. We call it a virus, just like the ones that make people sneeze. Most computer viruses are like having a cold. Annoying, but not super dangerous. They might make your computer run slowly or show you weird pop-ups, kind of like how a cold makes you feel yucky but doesn't really hurt you. But what if I told you that once upon a time, someone created a computer virus that was more like a superhero's superpower? Not the good kind of superhero, the scary kind that could actually break things in the real world. Not just computers, but actual machines, spinning wheels, and even giant factories. This isn't a story from a movie or a comic book. This really happened, and the computer virus that did it has a name that sounds like it came from a video game, Stuxnet. But here's the thing. Stuxnet wasn't just any computer virus. It was like giving a cold to a computer that would make the computer forget how to do its most important job, kind of like if you caught a cold that made you forget how to ride your bicycle while you were riding it. What makes this the greatest hack in history isn't just that it worked, though it definitely worked. It's that for the first time ever, someone figured out how to use a computer to break something made of metal and concrete thousands of miles away, without ever going there, without ever touching it, and without anyone knowing it was happening for years. Imagine if you could make your friend's toy robot malfunction, just by thinking about it, from your house, while your friend is at their house playing with it, and your friend has no idea you're doing anything at all. That's basically what happened, except instead of a toy robot, it was something much, much more important. The people who got hacked? They were trying to build something very dangerous. So dangerous that other countries were really, really worried about it. And the people who did the hacking? Well, they were probably some of the smartest computer experts in the world, working for one of the most powerful governments on Earth. But nobody knows for sure, and that's part of what makes this story so incredible. By the time this hack was discovered, it had already been working for years, secretly breaking machines and causing problems that the victims thought were just normal equipment failures. It was like having an invisible mischief maker in their factory, randomly making things go wrong and nobody could figure out why. This is the story of Stuxnet, the computer virus that changed everything about what hackers could do, what governments would do, and what the future of conflict between countries would look like. It's the story of the greatest hack in history, and I'm going to explain it to you like you're 5 years old, because even though it's incredibly complicated, the basic idea is actually pretty simple when you break it down. Let's start with something you understand. You know how when you play with building blocks, you stack them up to make a tower? And you know how there are rules, like you have to put the big blocks on the bottom so the tower doesn't fall over? Well, factories that make important things have rules too, except their rules are much more complicated and much more important. Stuxnet was discovered in 2010, but it had actually been doing its sneaky work since around 2007, maybe even earlier. That means for about 3 years, this invisible troublemaker was running around inside computers, causing problems, and nobody knew it was there. It's like if someone was sneaking into your room every night and moving your toys to different places, but doing it so carefully that you just thought you forgot where you put them. But what exactly was Stuxnet? Think of it like this. You know how some games have cheat codes that let you do special things? Stuxnet was like a cheat code, but for real-life machines. Except instead of giving you extra lives or making you jump higher in a video game, this cheat code made real machines spin too fast, or stop when they were supposed to keep going, or just act really, really weird. The machines that Stuxnet targeted weren't just any machines. They were super special, super important machines called centrifuges. Now, centrifuges are kind of like the spinning rides at an amusement park. Except instead of spinning people around for fun, they spin special materials around to separate different parts. Imagine you have a jar of water with sand at the bottom. If you could spin that jar really, really fast, the sand would get pushed to one side and the clean water would be on the other side. These particular centrifuges were in a country called Iran, and Iran was using them to work with something called uranium. Now, uranium is like a super powerful material that can be used to make electricity for cities, kind of like a really, really strong battery. But it can also be used to make very dangerous weapons, and that's what had other countries worried. The centrifuges needed to spin at exactly the right speed, not too fast, Not too slow, just perfect. Like when you're riding a bicycle. If you go too slow, you fall over. If you go too fast, you might crash. These centrifuges had to spin at just the right speed for a very long time to do their job properly. But Stuxnet had different plans. This sneaky little computer program would hide inside the computers that controlled the centrifuges, like a invisible gremlin. And every once in a while, not too often, because that would be suspicious, it would make the centrifuges spin way too fast or way too slow. When that happened, the centrifuges would break. And when they broke, the people running them thought it was just bad luck or old equipment. What made Stuxnet so special and so sneaky was that it was really, really smart about how it hid. Most computer viruses are like loud, annoying visitors who mess up everything and make it obvious they're there. But Stuxnet was like a quiet, sneaky ninja. It would only wake up and do its mischief if it found exactly the right type of computer, controlling exactly the right type of machine. If it found itself on your home computer, it would just go to sleep and do nothing. It was also smart enough to cover its tracks. After it made a centrifuge spin too fast and break, it would change all the numbers on the computer screens to make it look like everything was normal. It was like if you broke your mom's favorite vase, but then you had a magic power that made it look like the vase was still sitting there perfectly fine, even though it was actually in pieces on the floor. Now let's talk about how this invisible troublemaker actually did its job. Remember how we said Stuxnet was really smart? Well, it was smart in ways that even amazed the computer experts who discovered it. It was like finding out that your pet goldfish could secretly do math homework. First, Stuxnet had to get inside the computers in Iran. But here's the tricky part. These weren't just any computers. These were super important computers that weren't connected to the internet. It's like if you had a secret clubhouse with no doors or windows. How would someone get inside? The people who made Stuxnet solved this problem in a very clever way. They put their computer virus onto USB drives. You know those little sticks you can plug into computers to copy files? It's like if you wanted to get a message to someone in that secret clubhouse, so you put the message inside a toy that you knew someone would pick up and bring inside. When workers at the Iranian facilities plugged these USB drives into their computers, maybe they thought they were just normal USB drives with documents or pictures. Stuxnet would quietly copy itself onto the computer. But it didn't just copy itself once. Oh no, it was much smarter than that. Every time someone plugged that USB drive into a different computer, Stuxnet would copy itself there too. It spread from computer to computer, like when one kid at school gets a cold and then gives it to their friend, who gives it to their friend, until lots of kids have the cold. But spreading around was just the first part of Stuxnet's plan. The really clever part was what it did next. Stuxnet was looking for very specific computers made by companies called Siemens that were controlling those spinning centrifuges. It's like if you were playing hide and seek, but you were only looking for kids wearing red shirts. You'd walk past all the kids in blue shirts and green shirts until you found exactly what you were looking for. When Stuxnet found the right computers, it did something that had never been done before. It learned how to speak the special language that these computers used to talk to the centrifuges. Every computer has its own special language, kind of like how you might speak English at home, but learn Spanish at school. Stuxnet had to learn the secret language that told the centrifuges how fast to spin. Once it learned this language, Stuxnet became like a master of disguise. It would pretend to be the real computer program that was supposed to control the centrifuges. Imagine if someone could perfectly copy your voice and your face, so they could trick your parents into thinking they were you. That's what Stuxnet did to the centrifuges. Most of the time, Stuxnet would just sit there quietly, letting the centrifuges do their normal work. But every few weeks, it would wake up and cause trouble. It might tell a centrifuge to spin much faster than it was supposed to, like telling a hamster wheel to spin so fast that the hamster gets dizzy and falls off. Or it might tell the centrifuge to suddenly slow down and then speed up again, like if you were on a swing and someone kept pushing you at the wrong times. The really sneaky part was what Stuxnet did to hide its mischief. While it was making the centrifuges act crazy, it would also lie to the humans watching the computers. The computer screens would show fake numbers that made everything look normal, even while the real centrifuges were spinning out of control. It's like if you were supposed to be cleaning your room, but you had a magic mirror that always showed your parents a clean room, even when it was actually messy. This went on for years. The centrifuges would break, the Iranian scientists would scratch their heads and wonder why their equipment was so unreliable they'd fix it or replace it, and then Stuxnet would break the new ones too. It was like having a car that randomly breaks down, but every time you take it to the mechanic, they can't find anything wrong with it. Now we get to the most mysterious part of our story. Who created this incredibly smart and sneaky computer virus? And why did they do it? This is where our story becomes a bit like a detective movie, because even today, more than 10 years later, nobody has officially admitted to making Stuxnet. It's like if someone left an amazing drawing on your desk, but when you asked everyone in your class who drew this, they all just shrugged and said, "Not me." But even though nobody has confessed, computer detectives, people who are really good at figuring out where computer programs come from, have found lots of clues. And all those clues point to two countries working together, the United States and Israel. It's like if you found cookie crumbs leading from the kitchen to your brother's room, and your brother had chocolate on his face, you might not have seen him take the cookies, but you could make a pretty good guess about what happened. So why would these countries want to create such a complicated computer virus? Remember how we talked about Iran using those centrifuges to work with uranium? Well, many countries around the world were very worried that Iran might use that uranium to make nuclear weapons, the most dangerous weapons ever created. Nuclear weapons are so powerful that they can destroy entire cities, and the thought of more countries having them made a lot of people very nervous. Usually, when countries disagree about something really important like this, they might try different approaches. They might have meetings and discussions, kind of like when your parents sit down to talk about family rules. They might impose sanctions, which is like saying, "We won't trade toys with you until you follow the rules." Or, in the most serious cases, they might even go to war, which is like the biggest, most serious fight imaginable. But the people who created Stuxnet had a different idea. What if, instead of having meetings or fighting with soldiers, they could just quietly break the machines that Iran was using? It would be like if instead of telling your little brother to stop building a tower that might fall and hurt someone, you just secretly moved one block at a time until the tower couldn't be built anymore. This was actually a brand new type of conflict between countries. For thousands of years, when countries fought, they used swords, then guns, then planes, and tanks. But Stuxnet was the first time anyone used a computer program as a weapon to attack another country's machines. It was like inventing a completely new type of tool, not just for fixing things or building things, but for quietly breaking things from very far away. The people who made Stuxnet had to be incredibly smart and have access to very advanced technology. They needed to understand exactly how those Iranian centrifuges worked, what computers controlled them, and how to write a program that could break them without anyone noticing. This wasn't something a regular person could do in their bedroom. This required teams of the world's best computer experts, probably working for their government's most secret agencies. Creating Stuxnet probably took years of work and cost millions of dollars. The people working on it had to learn about nuclear centrifuges, industrial computers, and probably had to somehow get their hands on the same type of equipment that Iran was using, just so they could test their virus and make sure it would work. It's like if you wanted to prank someone's specific toy, you'd need to get the same toy to practice on first. But here's the thing that made this mission both brilliant and risky. Once Stuxnet was released into the world, its creators couldn't completely control it anymore. It was like releasing a smart, trained dog to go find something specific, but knowing that the dog might wander around and end up in places you didn't expect. And that's exactly what happened. Stuxnet didn't stay in Iran. It spread to computers all over the world, and that's how computer experts in other countries discovered it and figured out what it was designed to do. So what actually happened when Stuxnet did its sneaky work? And why does this matter so much that we're calling it the greatest hack in history? Well, the results were pretty dramatic, and they changed the way countries think about both computers and conflict forever. In Iran, Stuxnet was incredibly successful at its mission. Remember those centrifuges that were supposed to spin at exactly the right speed to process uranium? Stuxnet made about 0 of them break or work incorrectly. That might not sound like a huge number, but these machines were very expensive and very important to Iran's nuclear program. It's like if someone kept secretly breaking the most important parts of your Lego collection, eventually you'd have a hard time building anything. The Iranian scientists were completely puzzled. Their machines kept failing, but they couldn't figure out why. They probably replaced parts, brought in new experts, and tried all sorts of fixes. But nothing worked, because the problem wasn't with the machines themselves. It was with the invisible computer virus that kept telling the machines to do the wrong things. It's like trying to fix a bicycle, when the real problem is that someone keeps messing with the handlebars when you're not looking. This set back Iran's nuclear program by several years. Instead of steadily making progress, they had to keep stopping to fix problems, replace broken equipment, and figure out what was going wrong. For the countries that created Stuxnet, this was exactly what they hoped would happen. They had found a way to slow down Iran's nuclear program without dropping bombs or sending soldiers. But Stuxnet didn't just affect Iran. Because it was a computer virus, and because it spread through USB drives and networks, it ended up on computers all over the world. Computer security experts in many different countries started noticing this strange, complicated program and began studying it. It was like if you threw a paper airplane in your backyard, but it somehow ended up in airplane experts' laboratories all around the world. When these experts figured out what Stuxnet actually did, they were amazed and terrified at the same time. They were amazed because it was so sophisticated and clever, like discovering that someone had built a robot that could perfectly mimic human behavior. But they were terrified because it proved that computer viruses could now break real-world machines, not just mess up computer files. This changed everything about cybersecurity, which is the fancy term for protecting computers from bad guys. Before Stuxnet, most people worried about hackers stealing information, like credit card numbers or secret documents. It was like worrying about burglars who might sneak into your house and steal your valuables. But Stuxnet showed that hackers could now be more like saboteurs, people who break important things to cause problems. Suddenly, countries around the world started worrying about their own important facilities. What if someone created a Stuxnet-like virus to attack power plants, or water treatment facilities, or hospitals, or air traffic control systems? What if instead of just stealing information, hackers could turn off the electricity to entire cities, or cause trains to crash, or make factory equipment explode? This led to what experts call a cyber arms race. Just like countries once competed to build the biggest ships or the fastest planes for their militaries, countries now started competing to build the best cyber weapons, computer programs designed to attack other countries' important systems. It's like if every kid in school suddenly started trying to build the best paper airplane, not for fun, but because they thought they might need to defend themselves from other kids' paper airplanes. Stuxnet also created new jobs and new industries. Companies that make important equipment now had to hire computer security experts to protect their machines from cyber attacks. Governments created new military units focused entirely on cyber warfare. Universities started teaching courses about how to protect critical infrastructure from computer viruses. But perhaps the most important change was in how world leaders think about conflict between countries. Before Stuxnet, if country A wanted to damage something important in country B, they would have to send planes or ships or soldiers, see actions that everyone would see and recognize as acts of war. But Stuxnet showed that countries could now attack each other's important facilities secretly from thousands of miles away using nothing but computer code. This created new questions that world leaders are still trying to answer today. If someone uses a computer virus to break another country's power plant, is that an act of war? How do you prove who really created a cyber weapon? How do you defend against attacks that are invisible and might not be discovered for years? What happens when every country has cyber weapons pointed at every other country's most important systems? Stuxnet opened the door to a world where the greatest threats might not come from bombs or bullets, but from computer code written by people you'll never see, in countries you might never visit, targeting machines you didn't even know were vulnerable. It's a world where a small team of really smart programmers, working in secret, can potentially cause as much damage as an entire army. And that's why Stuxnet isn't just the story of one really clever hack. It's the story of how the rules of conflict between countries changed forever, and how we all started living in a world where computers aren't just tools for work and fun, but potential weapons that could affect everyone's daily life. That's the greatest hack in history. Not just because it was incredibly sophisticated, but because it changed the world in ways we're still trying to understand and cope with today.